First things first, I want to say a very happy Thanksgiving to you and your loved ones if you do indeed celebrate, and we have some big Nintendo Switch Online news to unpack on this exciting day because I'm a day late to this story, but I'm going to be honest, it really has a lot to do with the implications of the future of N64 games specifically on Nintendo Switch Online, because you probably know up to this point in time, I've had a very love-hate relationship with this service. If you stuck around on the channel, there's definitely some times where I'm more praising what Nintendo is doing with the frequency of updates and brand new major game releases. Then there's other times where we just go through major dry spells and nothing is being added in, and I call into question the value of the $50 annual price point that you do have to pay to be a Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack subscriber. Well, to many surprise, late on November 21st, Nintendo took to X to post the following, which reads, "Adventure calls in a galaxy of Jet Force Gemini coming to Nintendo Switch for Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack members this December." And you might stop and think, wait a minute, where's 1080 snowboarding? And that's a big part of the conversation today because we're getting a brand new rare developed N64 game, which also has a lot of major implications before we finish the already announced roadmap of N64 games that Nintendo communicated to us. And this is a big deal for a number of reasons, not to mention we have to unpack a Japan specific version of the N64 app that also opens the door for some other games we're going to talk about. But first off, on the announcement that Jet Force Gemini is coming to Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack, that's great news, clearly. I'm actually excited to play through this game for the first time because I have no hands-on experience with it whatsoever. I know it's a third-person action-adventure shooter that looks very cool. Rare developed games on the N64 are honestly some of the biggest gems on the console in my opinion, and just from looking at the gameplay of this game, I'm very excited to check it out hands-on. With its third-person shooter mechanic, it gives me kind of Ratchet and Clank / Gears of War vibes, but very different in its own unique style. I mean, I'm excited to learn more about the world, the characters. I've seen a ton of positive reviews about this thing online, people saying that they can't believe Nintendo just surprise announced this game, and to many people's surprise, myself included, GoldenEye has been missing from Japan this entire time. Now, I remember that at the Nintendo Direct when we learned that GoldenEye got added into the expansion pack that it said 2023 in Japan and it said coming soon in the Nintendo of America and the European Direct trailer, and we knew there was going to be some issues with the rating of this game, but we now have the answer to that, and also want to go over this first before we talk about the possibility of other games that could be added onto the service now, because you can see this following post over on X from Oatmeal Dome, which reads, "NSO N64 in Japan, a new 18 plus version of the N64 app will be released. GoldenEye and Jet Force Gemini will be locked to it. This is likely because GoldenEye 007 is rated 0Z, ESRB AO or PEGI 18 equivalent, so they need to restrict access to it." So we've had this long-running question online amongst fans on whether or not Nintendo would consider adding in more mature rated games from the N64 library, because of course they're very family friendly. They cater to a lot of the younger demographic that does indeed play the Switch, and oftentimes if something's not separated or locked off from the console, you might not see them add in something like an M-rated game or AO rated game equivalent, which is what GoldenEye is in Japan, to their widely promoted subscription service, unless if it's walled off somehow, and they have done the work to do this, which is really exciting because you're probably thinking of one game in particular that is also a rare developed game, which is none other than Conker's Bad Fur Day, and clearly this is not confirmation that Conker will ever get added into N64 for NSO, but it does at least open that door for a US North American rated game that is mature ESRB rating to possibly be added in, and we might get that clunky solution of a separate N64 app for mature games, but Nintendo's willing to think outside of the box to do it. Now, the other reason that this is a very big deal is because we haven't really known up to this point in time on whether or not Nintendo will go far down the rabbit hole with Rare developed games on N64. Microsoft owns Rare as it stands right now, so there's a lot of rights issues with getting these games on the platform, and no doubt Microsoft has to be involved with the okay for these games to be re-released on Nintendo's service because they acquired the rights to Rare developed games when they purchased them. So while we have had exceptions to this rule so far with Banjo-Kazooie and GoldenEye being the big shocker announcement, we also didn't know if it would maybe just end there with the Rare developed games and Nintendo's just going to kind of give the fans the really big ones but maybe leave out some of the less known Rare developed games. And I think the announcement of Jet Force Gemini really proves that anything is on the table at this point. Banjo-Tooie, in my opinion, following this announcement is more or less a shoo-in. We can talk about more confidently now games like Donkey Kong 64 being on a future roadmap, potentially announced as soon as something like a February Nintendo Direct. We are talking games like Diddy Kong Racing, which is also a rare developed game that I absolutely freaking want on this system. I certainly hope it happens soon, and it's entirely possible that it will now, because this is opening a new door, a new path that Nintendo will clearly go down, and is obviously working well with Microsoft on releasing these games, not to mention a game like Perfect Dark, which also carries that mature rating, in addition to Conker's Bad Fur Day, that are all in the conversation of games to be added to this N64 Mature app. So I am very excited to see this personally. I also think that it kind of gives us a peek behind the curtain of where Nintendo might be headed with the N64 service from here, because I do think that we may get off that traditional roadmap, because as we mentioned earlier in the video, 1080 snowboarding, which would have made all the sense in the world to release in December, is mysteriously missing. Maybe they just double up and surprise announce 1080 snowboarding towards the end of the month, but I'd be willing to bet that the game we're getting in December is just going to be Force Gemini, and that means Nintendo is going off the script of not sticking to a roadmap that they put out in a linear order, and actually surprising us with some brand new content that wasn't on that said roadmap. So where do they go from here with N64, Game Boy Advance, and all of the other consoles? Well, it's probably going to be random in true Nintendo fashion, but I do think that we might get another glimpse at N64 games at an upcoming February Direct. Hopefully it has all those rare games we mentioned, in addition to things like Smash Bros. 64, which we're clearly missing from the service, brought back with modern online play. I would love to see that, but I do think that this spells very good things for the service, and the potential for off-script surprises when Nintendo deems it necessary. So will we get another future roadmap of games? It's possible. And then will we potentially get games released that are not a part of that roadmap, even though they haven't finished said roadmap? Well, yeah, now that's on the table, because we've seen them do it with this particular announcement. So lots of exciting stuff going on. I'm still hopeful. I know it's November. We didn't really get anything this month in terms of new NSO content, which you can definitely gripe about. I mean, I get it. Nintendo's just not extremely consistent with this stuff. But if they're going to charge what they're charging, they better include big announcements like this from time to time. And we should briefly mention, while we're talking about Nintendo Switch Online, just another small side update. We do have an additional announcement where the next free game trial that you will be able to download is none other than Fae Farm. And this is going from November 22nd all the way through November 28th. So you can say that that's the NSO benefit for the month of November, I guess. But anyway, you get another free game trial. Nintendo typically runs a sale along with that, and I believe it's 25% off this particular title. So if you've been wanting to check out Fae Farm, now's a good time to give it a chance and decide if you want to purchase it at a discount at the end of your trial. You have until the 28th to do so. But NSO, at least for this particular announcement, I would say it's a very good news situation, and I'm just more excited to see Nintendo go off script with not only their roadmap, even though I do want to play 1080 snowboarding legitimately, that is a game I have a ton of nostalgia for, but also surprise us with one of the more deep cut rare games, and I think that puts a lot of the other ones back on the table. So I want to hear from you guys at this point in the video what you think of the state of NSO today as we get close to putting a bow on 2023. Are you happy with the service overall? Are you excited for this announcement of Force Gemini? What do you think of the N64 Mature rated app over in Japan? And do you think we're going to get something like that similar worldwide once we see the conversation of potential like Perfect Dark and Conker's Bad Fur Day being added into the conversation? And what game that has not yet been announced for the N64 roadmap are you most hoping to see announced in the upcoming future? So regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around these topics. Go watch yesterday's video next if you haven't already, which is on screen right now. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.